What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Planet Soccer channel here on YouTube. Dylan, we're doing a match week 18 preview, even though we've got a game underway and one completed already.
Yeah,
One of them is
grace. I'd like some grace from our audience on that one. They're throwing Thursday games at us now.
Yeah,
Friday is normal.
we've just given
but
up on
Thursday
our.
at us is.
We've given up on our little game we were playing on Twitter just because.
I think we both got embarrassed a couple weeks in a row and had a bit of a rough patch. So yeah, I think we kind of abandoned that, and maybe rightfully so. Maybe next year we'll get back at it and be a little bit more stringent with it.
Yeah. All right. So this week we've got 3 games we're talking about. We'll mention a couple others. I'm not going to say the headliner because it's definitely not, but an interesting one we have this week due to table position, form, and the fact that it's Manchester United and we have Man U at West Ham. Dylan, this one, I don't know how I feel about this one. I really don't.
I've been super high on West Ham for the last 10 months probably about like their future, and it's finally starting to come to fruition. Like end of last year, beginning of this year, you kept replying to my text from like March of last year or April, watch out for West Ham, mocking it. But
you said something more egregious than that.
I said I'm nervous about West Ham moving forward or something to that effect.
I think you said something of the fact about West Ham
or anything.
I think you said West Ham's going to be in the Big Six in the next few years, or like be part of that conversation. Something. I mean,
they win. They beat United. They're in 7th, nipping at Newcastle's heels. I believe if Newcastle were somehow to lose at Luton, it would put West Ham in 6th ahead of Newcastle. So like it's not completely outlandish when you look at recent form. They have looked good. They've won 3 of their last 5, only dropping one of their last 5. A win against Man United, like I said, would put them ahead of Man United. So in a way, they're kind of replacing one of those big 6 in the immediate nature of this year. Not quite into 6th, but replacing one of those perennial big 6, if you will. But they have not fared well against Man United in the last, I don't know, 25 years. They've won 8 of their last 50 plus matches against Man U. So while they have been looking good, while they have been looking even better at home, history tells us this will be closer than recent form, and the eye test would probably tell us. Moyes, since returning to West Ham after his stint at United, they have not fared well against that big 6 that I was trying to catapult them into. They've won 3 of 31, I believe, games in the last 4 seasons. So it is on paper, it's a tall task for West Ham, but when you actually look at the kind of breakdown of how they've been playing, the style of play, Ten Hag's recent lack of success, to put it nicely, I think this is a really nice spot for West Ham. I'm pretty high on West Ham. When the advanced lines came out from a gambling perspective, I jumped all over West Ham, draw no bet at like almost even money. I'm pretty high on West Ham in this game, and maybe that is my biasness towards Kudus and Paqueta, because Kudus has been red hot finally, scoring 6 in his last 11 and looking more dominant than that, even from that midfield. I'm full buy mode. I know this isn't our buy or sell recap, but I am full buy mode on West Ham as of late.
Yeah, so with West Ham and Man United, I think you said on paper it might be closer than, or it might be closer than it looks on paper.
Just by
history, yeah. I think on paper it looks like a good matchup, but if you pull up both teams' Wikipedia pages, then it might not be a matchup. But I definitely say, like, if you're a week-to-week watcher of the Premier League, you're looking at this game, and most people are going to say, okay, if I can't pick draw, I'm going to lean towards West Ham, and not only just because it's at home, just because it's 2023 Man United. They played in the Champions League. They finished last in their group, which is what scrubs do, honestly, just absolute scrubs, scum of the earth, finish last in their Champions League group. But yeah, Kudus is great. Paqueta's been playing well. My and this is more of a macro thing on West Ham for me. I think when we look at West Ham and them being in London, they're obviously not in the top 3 biggest clubs in London. Paqueta looks bored at West Ham sometimes. I just don't think they're going to be able to hang on to those players long
Agreed.
enough in order for West Ham to get to that level. Just because if you're going to play for a team in London, you're going to pick Tottenham, Chelsea, or Arsenal. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Especially,
Yeah, and I think I also just don't believe in Moyes as like the answer there. Like he's kind of served his
yeah,
purpose there. They
yeah.
won a European trophy last year, which is massive. Regardless of what European trophy it is massive for a club like West Ham to build momentum. But it almost feels like a team that if they are going to keep the Kudus and Paquetas happy and around and competing for perennial top 6 positions, they're going to probably have to take a little bit of a gamble on a manager. Like
I think
not saying they're where Newcastle was when they hired Eddie, but they almost need to go find themselves an Eddie-esque. I don't think they can quite attract a an Unai Emery ilk of manager at this time because, like you said, you will always be fourth fiddle at best in London, and that's a really tough hurdle to overcome. So they're going to have to find kind of a manager in the rough, if you will, to really take that next step. But I think right now they have the talent there to have a very strong season. I think they can absolutely flirt with, probably not secure, but flirt with a Champions League position if the Premier League does get that 5th spot. I could see them strongly competing for that 5th spot or that 6th spot to secure Europa League once again for them. And then Man U is a complete 180 from that as far as projection for me. I mean, this year alone, they've lost more matches in 20. They've only played 25 matches in all competitions. They have as many losses last year as they had in 62 matches in all
so.
competitions.
As many
So Man
losses
U is,
already this year as they had in 62 competitions last year.
yeah, so they're very much trending downward.
Yeah.
It really is a tale of two trends here for me, and I'm pretty high on where West Ham currently is now. Again, you're right. I think I was probably a little too bullish on West Ham considering all factors, but they have looked really good this year. Um, they're finding scoring in a multitude of ways. Man United is not. Man U, we talked about Hoyland last week or earlier this week on our recap. Still hasn't scored a Premier League goal. Had a couple of goals in Champions League, which is obviously important. So not completely bashing him. When you're a club like Man United, you like to think that Champions League is just as important, if not more important, than your performance in the league. But he's still scoreless in the league, and you spend 70 million on a striker who hasn't scored in 12, 13, 14, whatever matches he himself is at now. That's a pretty big red flag.
Yeah. I think when I look at West Ham and Moyes and their future, I think Postecoglou skipped a step. I think Celtic to West Ham to a team like Spurs would have been a good trajectory for him. Obviously thrilled that he just went ahead and climbed up that ladder and skipped the West Ham step, but that's the type of guy they'll need to find.
Yep. Yeah,
A culture
exactly.
guy, a off the radar guy. I think one thing I love about Postecoglou is he's coached in those up and coming countries that are starting to develop really elite youth prospects. Like he knows Japan and the Japanese league like the back of his hand. So he has an in there, and then Australia is getting much better at soccer also. He's Greek, so any Greek superstar. He casts a wide net around the globe as opposed to like an Eddie Howe, who's a great coach, but he's like English through and through, and like that's his
Through and
scope.
through. Absolutely.
You can hire people around you that know the globe better, but that's one huge thing that Postecoglou brings to Tottenham, and I think that's what West Ham will need to get like the
Yeah.
Matomas, before they're the Matomas, kind of like Brighton did.
Yeah, and as
Yeah,
much money as West Ham does have, they don't have Big Six money, so they will have to get a little bit more creative. And that recruitment
or
process in
revenues.
the
Yeah, the revenues
in the
aren't.
managerial hires, like they are going to have to get a little bit more creative to be a consistent top 8, top 6 threat type club. But right now, the roster they've built is very, very solid and very promising in the here and now. They don't have a Bruno Fernandes. I hate having to give him credit, but he does have the most chances created in the Premier League this year. That's kind of the one statistic Man U can hang their hat on. But when you have a guy like Bruno who does create countless number of chances and a striker that you spent 70 million on and not getting goals, that is a huge red flag. So I do expect, like you said, if you can't pick draw, if you're doing a draw no bet, I heavily lean towards West Ham here, and not just because they're at home, but because of what they've produced on the field this year and because how they match up on paper in this immediate here and now, ignoring the history that goes against West Ham this week.
Yeah. Another headliner involving Liverpool this week. We've got Liverpool versus Arsenal for claims at the top of the table. Is that right? Does that math work out?
Yeah.
Will Liverpool go back to the top?
This is one we actually wanted to talk about Liverpool this week. Last week we kind of joked about the Liverpool Man U game being a no contest. Liverpool at home is fantastic, obviously. Anfield is known as one of the hardest places to win, not only because of the club you're going up against, but because of the atmosphere. And Klopp spoke to that this week in his midweek pre-match press conference, asking the fans to really throw all of their support. And I think they will need it.
I think he said, quote, like Arsenal, he shouldn't have to. Klopp said something like he shouldn't have to start yelling at officials and things like that for the crowd to get riled up. I think he was a little disappointed with what Anfield gave him versus Man U. So he's like, I shouldn't have to cry to officials.
Everything was kind of flat against Man U. Yeah. Like the players looked flat. The crowd was a little flat. So yeah,
it was an ugly game to watch.
It was bad. I mean, I was at my parents' house doing Christmas cookies, so I didn't watch it in full like I would have liked. But it was on in the background, and it was not a game that I felt glued to. I would have fully been glued to it while making cookies if it was a match warranting it, but it wasn't. Liverpool did look very flat, but they have gone 10 matches unbeaten at Anfield. Versus Arsenal. They have one loss in the league in the last 50 matches. So while I am high on Arsenal,
home loss in the league.
Yeah, one home loss in the last 50 against anybody. While I am very high on Arsenal, it is certainly a tough place to play. But I think it is going to be a match that it feels like a title decider. I know that feels kind of crazy. We're sitting, December 22nd, right before Christmas, right before the big Boxing Day matches. It does feel a little crazy calling a game this important this early. But when you look at the track record of the last decade and a half, 10 of the last 14 leaders on Christmas Day have gone on to win the league. Now, recency bias, we know that is not fully important because Arsenal last year,
Arsenal's one of those four.
Lead. Arsenal had a 5-point lead on Christmas Day last year and did not secure, as we all know, the league title. But you also throw Villa in. I have Villa pulled up on my side screen right now. They're in a 0-0 draw at home against Sheffield. Big, mighty Villa at home not securing a win against Sheffield would really open the door for this match being a title decider, if you will. And Liverpool has looked very good against Arsenal in the past. Again, looking at the past, 7 to 8 years or so, they've been averaging almost 3 goals a game versus Arsenal. Salah loves playing Arsenal. I know I said that last week about Salah playing Man U. He loved playing Man U. He was averaging a goal a game, but he's got 9 goals in 13 games against Arsenal. So on paper, it feels like this is going to be a advantage Liverpool. But I do think this Arsenal side is different than we've seen the past few years. Definitely, I like this Arsenal side more than last year's Arsenal side. I know that seems obvious.
Really?
They have Declan Rice, and that is kind of where my argument stops on that. They have a healthy Jesus Pasta. Holy cow. Sheffield just scored. Oh,
really?
Oh, boy. Sheffield up 1-0.
It's late, too. Isn't it late?
Yeah, 87th minute. Sheffield just scored against Villa. You're not hearing this live because we're not live, but you will be reacting live-ish with me right now. And I'm stunned by that because I firmly believed I had in the notes on this game, it was at least for 24 hours, there was a real chance that Villa was going to be top of the table for the first time since 1998, I believe it was. And they could have held that with a Liverpool Arsenal draw. But yeah, it doesn't look like that is going to happen if they don't secure 3 points, which I think everybody would have assumed they would. Nice little set piece play, cross. Yeah, that was a beautiful, beautiful goal. So Villa, sorry, probably not going to be leaders at Christmas at this point. So if we are going on the last decade and a half, things are looking good for the winner of Arsenal and Liverpool on the weekend, at least.
Yeah, I think. God, what was I going to say? With
Sorry, that threw me off too.
You're good. You're good. I remember. I don't know if it necessarily tells us like if it's a title decider or a title influencer, but I think it gives us like a clear cut, okay, they're the favorites sort of deal, like to this point, it's been, okay, Man City to start, and then Tottenham climbed up and then fell off with injuries, and then Liverpool rose up, and Arsenal's just kind of stayed consistent. Villa got hot. I think. Did you lose me?
Oh, I lost you. You're back. We're good.
Okay.
That was weird.
All right, we'll see how that recording turns out. Basically, I was saying to this point, it's been City and then Tottenham, and then Arsenal stayed consistent. Then Liverpool rose back up into the top 3. Then Villa rose into the top 3 with their month of November. I think this game does give us like that. Okay, yeah, they're the favorites going into the new year. A lot changes in January. You can make game-changing signings in January. Van Dijk was signed in January by Liverpool. Kulusevski was signed by us last year in January, and obviously you guys did all your business, big business in January after the takeover. So a lot can change, but this definitely gives us like an okay, they're the favorite, especially if Arsenal wins at Liverpool. Then that's a big statement for me.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Van Dijk signing because I watched an interview with Van Dijk leading up to this game, and that's kind of what he said. Like, yes, leading at Christmas is important, but
where was he before?
He understood that. Oh gosh,
I'll look it up. Keep telling your story. Keep telling your story.
So he was talking though about how the Christmas, the table on Christmas Day is statistically important. But from a player perspective and from like a real, like actual on the pitch macro perspective, you don't really know what the league is going to end up at until the middle to end of February. Once those January signings, because every team making a legitimate push is going to make at least one signing of some sort, whether it's bench depth or a starting striker or a winger, you're going to see something come in January for those big clubs of some sort. And
especially with AFCON and the Asian Cup both happening as well, add in the January. It's just, it's going to be a hodgepodge until the end, I think.
Yeah, and I think that 10 of 14 statistic is certainly skewed by pure dominance by certain teams in previous years, and we've talked ad nauseum on this show about how fluid this year is. There's high legitimate, well, until Villa just dropped 3 points at home to Sheffield, I legitimately believe there were 4 or 5 teams, probably 5 teams that have a real chance to win this league still come end of January.
With 3 games to go, or say 5 games to go, Tottenham's last 5 games are hell on earth, but like you could legitimately see at least 4 teams like within 6 points striking of the
distance,
title.
Realistic striking distance, without needing like crazy upsets like a Sheffield knocking somebody off on the road. Like I do think this year is probably as likely as any year to buck the trend of that 10 of 14. It feels like this year, so I don't want to say it is a title winner in December, but it is as close as you're going to get before the new year of a title decider when you have Arsenal going to Liverpool. And like you said, if Arsenal does come away with 3 points, I think they are far and away the front runner. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether you're a Spurs fan or not.
Vegas will still tell you it's Man City, though. Vegas will still tell you it's Man City.
And they do have a game in hand now because of the FIFA Club World Cup, and they didn't play this weekend, so they will have a game in hand. But I think if Arsenal does go in, they're again front runners at Christmas, but we saw how that worked last year.
Yeah. All right, last game that is actually interesting, which we maybe didn't think it would be, say match week 10, even
Certainly
after the
wasn't circled on my calendar 2 months ago. We'll
yeah,
say
me
that.
neither. We've got Everton at Spurs. Everton has 4 straight clean sheets since their 3-0 loss to Man United. They haven't had 5 since 2009, so they could hit a milestone here. I feel like Everton hasn't done a lot of things since 2009. It's their first 4-match win streak since 2020. Jared Brandwaite, their young center back, who is just an FM legend, has been a key, and he's also been linked to Spurs. However, we'll
Did you
see.
see the rumor on him today? It just came out today, the rumored price tag.
No.
100 million pounds.
And Everton hates dealing with us after the Delhi thing, after the Richarlison thing. Yeah, I mean, there are other guys. Yeah.
Like,
We can get
nobody's
to
signing it. Like, he's great. I love him. He's a future star in the league. I firmly believe that.
we signed Van de Ven for
100 million?
30. Van de Ven
Right,
for 30.
like and right. This feels like, because Man U is the other team rumored for him. This feels like a Spurs are like, yeah, we'll do 60. Oh, Man U will do 70. Oh, we'll do 70. Oh, wait, Man U will do 80. Yeah, like keep driving the price up and let Man U do stupid Man U things.
Daniel Levy's going to be in his bag on that negotiation.
Because he will, I firmly believe he will be a top 10, if nothing else, center back a couple years from now. He's absolutely phenomenal. But 100 million to a side like Everton, no offense to Everton, like, Everton's not threatening those top tier teams for European placement. So you don't have to pay that, because some of price tags in Premier League, when you're looking at superstar players, is not only are you improving your side, but you're weakening an opponent's side. Like, that was a big deal with the Chris Wood signing for Newcastle. Like, we were in a relegation battle with Forest, probably paid more than we needed to, or not with Forest, with Burnley. When we signed him, and it was we were paying 30 million, but it's also weakening a relegation foe. And so you had to pay a premium. You're not going to really have to pay that premium to Everton right now because of the point deduction. So I think that price tag's a little ridiculous, but
Everton's in no position to be pricing teams out of a
right.
Good
they
sale
need
for them.
money. They need money in a bad way. So I think the 100 million's ridiculous and never going to happen. But I just saw that today and I thought that was hilarious because I've seen him so closely linked with you guys. I know you like him a lot as well.
I do, but I need somebody absurd. Who, I mean, he's obviously ready for the Premier League, but he's still going to have those inconsistencies, which we have some of the best like youth depth at center back in Europe. Thanks to this summer, made a ton of really, really huge, like 17, 18-year-old signings. But I need somebody to come in and like step in for Romero and not miss a beat, which they're just not the same player right now. Romero's playing with his head on his shoulders. Van Dijk, by the way, came from Southampton, who was in the Premier League at that point.
Right.
Liverpool bought him for 13 million pounds.
And we're gonna ask for 100 million from Brandwaite.
It wasn't that long. It wasn't that long ago either.
No, it wasn't. It is insane the prices that are being thrown out there now. I don't think he gets 100. I just thought it was a hilarious clickbait article that I saw today. 100 million for him is comical. But bring the focus back to the match at hand. You guys have a pretty good track record the last couple of years against Everton at home. Everton obviously has not been like some powerhouse lately, but you guys normally very convincingly are able to handle Everton at home, 5-0, 2-0. However, they do play really well on the road this year. They have the second most points on the road this year. On the flip side of that, though, Sean Dyche does not do well against Spurs. I think he's lost 5 of his 6 matches against Spurs as a Premier League head coach. But I do think we're going to see a low block from him. Shocker, not surprising. They are much, much better this year. All 8 of their wins, they've had less than 50% possession. So we know exactly. Oh, Villa tied it up in the
Damn.
97th minute. Zaniolo, which was a really good sound, like sneaky signing for them.
We
They
were
need.
linked with him like last January, I think.
I feel we were too. I think everybody was
Yeah.
last
Before
year.
he
Everybody
went
in
somewhere
that
weird. He went to Turkey, didn't he?
Galatasaray.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to Galatasaray. Um, but yeah, they're not going to secure 3 points out of this. There's only a minute and a half left. Anyways, back to Everton Spurs. Sorry, this is a very like meaningful game in the table, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
to keep my eyes on it. That was an impressive goal. But yeah, I think we all know what to expect from this match. We're going to see a low block
Do
from
we?
Shawnee
Do we
Boy.
know what to expect?
You don't expect a low block. You expect him to play a high line so they get thrashed 5-0 like they did 2 years ago under Lampard. I'm
I've done
fully
some
expecting a low
I
block, but hit me with you're more of the tactical guy, so I'll let you take. I am expecting a low block, low scoring. I would fully expect a 2-0 or 2-1 Spurs win here. I don't expect a lot of high flying action. I think it will be a pretty um, tactical game from Everton where they're really sitting low and trying not to give up too many goals to a Spurs side that has scored 29 straight league matches. I don't really expect a lot of offense out of Spurs in this, or out of Everton in this one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's also worth mentioning we've got the Richarlison homecoming, which I think it'll be his second time back at Everton, but he's finally scoring this time. So I just feel like a Richarlison goal is coming, but also every time I've said that, it hasn't. Let's look at this tactically. I'm going to try to be more concise than I was last week on the West Ham Wolves game. There are actually a lot of similarities between Dyke Ball and Ange Ball, but they're not like really tactical similarities. They're like mindset similarities. It's intensity, verticality,
Pressing.
intensity, verticality, and physicality. So if you look at intensity, both teams are relentless in pressing. So that's kind of the first thing that goes off in my mind that says, okay, maybe they don't just sit in a low block. They're 2 out of the 3 most aggressive teams in the Premier League as far as fouls go. Everton are 3rd for combined tackles, interceptions, and blocked passes in the final third, only behind Arsenal and Tottenham. And they're tied for 1st for defensive actions leading to a shot with 13, which is tied with Tottenham. Verticality. So this is also speaking to the low block. For verticality for Everton essentially means like their verticality on the pitch and where they make their defensive actions, as well as their aerial ability. So literally verticality and then on the field verticality. Spurs are one of 2 teams not to concede a goal from a corner, though, so maybe they can mitigate some of Everton's aerial threat on the offensive side. However, Everton have the most goals scored per 100 corners since Dyche took over. Second is more than 2 goals per 90 or per 100 combined. So if this will be Spurs' toughest test on corners. It's good that Romero's in. And I actually like Ben Davies at left center back in this matchup as opposed to Van de Ven because of his aerial ability and more of his physical nature. Obviously, if you're playing a team that stretches you more, say like a Bournemouth with Solanke on the end of long balls, then that's a little more Van de Ven because you don't want to get beat or guys with pacey strikers. But I think Davies plays well in this game. As far as Everton's positioning on the field, they've kind of switched from what we knew from Dyche's Dyke. Is it Dyche? Sean Dyche? Whatever.
Dyche, whatever.
Big
Depends if
Sean.
you're American or not. Yeah. Shawnee Boy.
Big Sean, he's kind of shifted from what we saw at Burnley. You go to turf more in the snow, they'd sit in the low block. With Everton, he's got the players, the personnel to actually make a lot of defensive actions up high on the pitch, which I think what do I have here? They're like 2nd in the league in presses or pressing actions in the opponent's box or the opponent's third. So Vicario's going to have a real test. He's been great with his feet thus far. He's going to have to be good with his feet again, but also really have command of the area, command of the box, and confidence when he goes out for corners or out for crosses, because Everton does do some dark arts in the box with their boxing out of keepers and their, maybe some subtle shirt pulls that would be holding in the NFL. So big test for Vicario. Everton, or Opta says that Everton have the highest direct speed of ball progression from the defensive third to the attacking third in the league. And that's not just long ball, sending long balls deep. That's also a little bit of nuanced intricacies in their buildup. They're not going to, it's not going to be like Rodri where he carries it and then gets it to
Right.
De Bruyne, and De Bruyne gets it to Grealish, then Grealish into Holland. It'll be like a 1-2 pass combination, then a long ball, as opposed to just keeper gets it, boots it deep. Hopefully you can retain possession and get somebody on a run, free on goal. So they have options offensively. They don't excel at any of those options, but there are options. So Christian Romero's reading of the game and his instincts will come into play for sure in this one. Lastly, physicality. Everton have committed the third most fouls in the league. Spurs are eighth, but Spurs are first in cards. Everton are third in cards, I believe. And like we said, Everton's won the most aerial duels in the Prem so far at 313, and Spurs are third from the bottom at 168. Personnel wise, no Mike Mikolenko or Decore will really hurt Everton in this one.
That's the biggest thing for me is no Mikolenko. He's been phenomenal this year.
And even Decore, I mean, he's helped facilitate a lot of what Dominic Calvert-Lewin's been able to do here recently, with their kind of two up top. They play off each other really well. Spurs' disinclination to do lofty crosses. They don't really send the ball high into the box. They send it low, sharp, quick,
good.
Lots of cutbacks.
Match, it's good.
Yeah, very good for this match. Porro, we'll see if he can hit, I don't know, maybe Sarr on a cutback cross, or Richarlison getting something, his hip, head, whatever, anything other than his hand on a ball to get a goal. So these teams actually match up, like, philosophy-wise somewhat similarly. I think you will see maybe an extra 2-1-2 guys in Everton's defensive block, but it's not going to be 10 guys behind the ball like we saw at Burnley.
I think that's the one thing that would concern me not playing super low, not playing super defensively, is the speed that Spurs have out wide and up top. I'll hate on Richarlison till the cows come home, but like, he is a threat on a long ball. He is a threat in quick progression, and Sonny is one of the best in those situations. And Kulusevski has obviously shown as of late that he can similarly thrive in those situations. So I do, like you said, I do expect them, maybe not a full low block, 10 guys behind the ball, but I expect 8 guys behind the ball most of the game from Everton, because of that speed for Everton, or speed for Spurs, kind of putting a thorn in the side of Everton, especially with no Molineaux, because he has been phenomenal for them in the back. I don't expect this to be a 4-goal game. I would expect it to be 3 goals or less. I would give advantage Spurs, like you said. The way Spurs score is not the way that Everton defends best. Aerials is not a way to beat Everton, and Spurs doesn't really need aerials to score goals. So this is a huge test, though, for Everton. I mean, like I said, they've won their last 4 matches. They've had 4 clean sheets. They're going up against a side that scored 30 straight nearly league games. So I think this can be a super interesting one. I really, really wish this was not a 10 a.m. 9 Central or whatever the heck time that is over an England game, because I will be watching Newcastle grind out hopefully 3 points against Luton instead of watching this one. And this is going to be a lot more exciting match. I think it is a very interesting, very physical matchup. I expect to see multiple cards in this one, as we have already alluded to. Spurs have as many red cards this year already as they did in the last 2 years combined, partially because of the officiating that we've talked about in the past, but partially just based on play style. They have some gritty, aggressive.
The high line creates lots of desperation tackles.
Yep, absolutely. And I expect to see kind of a high line from Spurs in this one, because, like I said, there isn't a lot of speed out wide necessarily for Everton. Calvert-Lewin has been very good since coming back from injury, but he's not a guy that you're worried about burning your your back line
Yeah.
necessarily on
Yeah.
through balls or anything like that. So tactically, it's a really interesting one. I was hoping to initially hoping to tactically dive into Arsenal and Liverpool, but I think this is kind of a fun little experiment for us because I do think tactically they match up pretty uniquely.
Yeah, I really like the prospect of Brennan Johnson, Pat Matesar, and Pedro Porro going down the right in this one. I think with their combination of speed and the ability to do those cutback passes, and then Sarr just to literally cover the globe in what seems like no time at all with his 7-foot legs. I like their chances in this one. Also, side note, without the point deduction, if Everton were to win the Tottenham game, they would be sitting in 7th place ahead of Man United, just behind Newcastle. So pretty crazy. I'd say they're safe from relegation, even with, well, yeah, they're definitely safe. They're sitting at 16th.
Unless they get that other, unless they go into administration and get another point deduction.
Yeah,
but even
true.
as an Everton detractor, like I don't want that at this point. Like the players and the fan, like and Sean, they fully deserve to stay up and build off of the success. As much as I would love for Everton to do a double bounce like Sunderland, it wouldn't be right at this point. They have fully proven their worth and deserve to be a Premier League side. And I don't like to say I hope they stay up and avoid administration and the extra point deduction, but I kind of do at this point because they just deserve it. See, this is weird. Like as a pure fan and like not being, I know we're not journalists, but not being like trying to be objective, like it would be clear as day for me hoping for Everton to get blown out by you guys and a extra point deduction because I just hate them, but they have shown their worth since that initial point deduction.
Yeah.
Jump to elsewhere though. We'll just do this real quick. The other three matches we have on tier aren't super noteworthy, but there is a little bit of noteworthiness. Again, Newcastle at Luton. Luton we've seen is a tough place to go and take 3 points at times, as we saw in that Arsenal matchup. Newcastle need 3 points, flat out need 3 points. They're just Twitter fan rumblings, but there have been rumblings, which blows my mind, about replacing Eddie Howe. And I think 3 points would go a long way. I don't know, but I don't know. Like I said, it is stupid.
Xabi Alonso?
Jose Mourinho is the one that when we lost to Chelsea, I saw numerous people post Mourinho gifts. I think it was tongue in cheek. I don't think it was serious. But Newcastle need 3 points here. You're facing a newly promoted side, a side with a tenth of the budget. This is a side. I don't care how tough Kennilworth is to go and play at. You need to secure 3 points. Another team that really needs to secure some points is Forest, but they have a tall task. Bournemouth has been real hot. Bournemouth going into City Ground to play Forest with their new manager, who you are very, very familiar with, Nuno Espirito, I think.
Yeah, Nuno Espirito Santo.
Again, tale of the two sides here and two very differently trending teams. Bournemouth has been on fire, won 4 of their last 5. Forest has lost 4 of their last 5.
The craziest thing to me about the Nuno hiring is Forest has spent so much, maybe not so much money, but they've bought so many players over the last year and a half. Like Nuno will just not evolve from his system, and so I'd say probably 3/4 of those players are players that either won't see the field or won't be used right, or meaningless, waste of money. It's just it's a weird hire to me. And
it's a name hire. That's all it is to me.
I guess. I mean, he had a decent stint at Wolves. I think he got Wolves up to like 7th or something in his year there, which is good for Wolves.
But did it from building or from fitting a club and a mentality and a player structure that I just don't think we see the same player
Portuguese
structure.
Manager at Wolves playing that 5 at the wing backs. It's not
what Forest has in on their roster right now. So I do think it was a weird hire. I definitely think it was a name hire. But yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one for Forest. They really need that new manager bounce that you normally see. But like you said, I think,
and he's not a guy that galvanizes the dressing room either. He's not like a guy you see a normal manager bounce from. You know, he's not a fiery like Let's go
I'm
fucking
pretty
do
high on
this.
Bournemouth. I'm pretty high on
Yeah.
Bournemouth to take some points this week. I don't know if they'll take all three, but I don't really see a Forest win coming this week. But we'll see.
Bournemouth hasn't
Uh,
lost in over a month in the league. City was
yeah,
their last loss, November
which
4th.
you're Bournemouth, you're going to lose to City. No
Yeah.
offense, it's just going to
Yeah.
happen. But yeah, it's a big one for Forest. It's
Yep.
a semi newly promoted side that if you are going to get a new manager bounce, you better get it right now.
Yeah.
But Bournemouth has been very good. The other one I have very strong feelings on because I was very high on Wolves in the offseason, and I still am kind of high on Wolves, less so than I may have been a month ago. But Wolves
I
hosting
would say more
Chelsea.
so than a month ago because we got Neto
Oh, a
back,
month
right?
ago. Yeah. Neto's likely back. I don't know if it's official yet. This is the Sunday game, so we don't have like a full injury report on this, but Neto is likely back. They're unbeaten at home. Chelsea hasn't won back-to-back matches in the league with Poch yet. I know it's a pretty small sample size, but when you're a side like
I
Chelsea,
I saw somewhere
it's
they've only
kind of
won back.
crazy.
I saw somewhere they've only won back-to-back games twice in this calendar year.
Oh, I believe it. If you look at
So
calendar year table, they're a bottom six, I believe. Obviously,
yeah.
the sides that got relegated and promoted. So
Mhm.
if you take them out of it, essentially, because that's going to be your bottom 6 or 7, or your bottom six,
They were
like they're
tied for the
sitting there
least.
at like fifth.
They were tied for the least amount of wins as far as like draws and stuff go. I don't know where that would put them, but
I saw a couple weeks ago. I wish I'd have researched it a little harder going into this episode, but I saw a couple of weeks ago that of teams that have been in top flight this whole calendar year, they had the fewest points.
it was
And
like them,
I don't think
Palace, and somebody else, I
and
think.
I don't
But yeah, I
think
saw that.
Poch they do have Nkuku back. He played against Newcastle during the week in their EFL Cup win, Mickey Mouse Cup win. Nobody cares about the EFL Cup. Carabao Cup's a joke, right? Yep, that's what we're going with right now.
Unless you win it, unless you win it.
That's what we're going with right now. But it is one that, on again, namesake on paper, this is a must win for Chelsea. But I think it's going to be a pretty tall task to go into Molineaux and get a win because nobody has done that this year. And Wolves is getting their best
That's
attacking
crazy.
player back. So I think this is another one where I would heavily, if we're not able to pick draw, I would lean heavily towards Wolves, which just does feel kind of crazy on namesake alone. But when you're
Yeah.
watching, like you said earlier, when you're watching the game on the field and watching match after match each week, Wolves has looked the better side
Mm-hmm.
for more weeks than Chelsea has for sure.
Yeah, and Chelsea finally got themselves back into the top 10 with the win last week. However, Fulham does have, I believe, Burnley this week, and they're
Yep.
1 point
Yeah.
behind.
Fulham has
So
Burnley.
if Chelsea wants to stay in the top half, they better get a win because I like Fulham's chances against Burnley. But yeah, anything else, Dylan?
No.
That Villa game final?
Yeah. Villa game's final 1-1. They were unable to secure 3 points against Sheffield at home, which is wild because they've been so good at home this year, and Sheffield is Sheffield. But yeah, this is probably, well, not probably. I'll go ahead and say it. This is our last episode pre-Boxing Day. With the holidays coming up, I don't see us, where the holiday falls, I don't see us recording again until post-Boxing Day. And then come the new year, I'll let you tease it, but come the new year, we got a little bit of a new format coming for you. I believe we discussed earlier. So
Yeah,
give a
we're
little
gonna
preview and then we'll sign off.
change it up a little bit. Move on to some more unique kind of perspective stories. Everybody previews and reviews the Premier League week. There, everybody talks about transfers. We're going to take ourselves back to when we were in high school, let's say, and we weren't following soccer like we are now, but we knew about it. We knew the stereotypes. We knew that, Brazil, France, England were really good. We didn't really know why, other than it just seemed like they had the best players. Why does Europe dominate competitions? Why is Argentina and Brazil the only good South American countries right now? Why hasn't Asia become a soccer powerhouse? We're going to talk about all that and kind of a soccer for dummies format a little bit. We talked about soccer simplified, Dylan, a little bit last year, but we're not going to do as specific topics as what is a midfielder, things like that. It's going to be more maybe what Americans didn't realize they were wondering about soccer, but once they watch the videos, they will realize, I'm glad I know that. So that's kind of what we're going for. Still in the brainstorming stages, but I think it'll be fun. So yeah, we appreciate you guys
Definitely looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yep. Appreciate you guys watching as always. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share. Dylan will be the editor for the foreseeable future. I have a MacBook in the mail. You can Venmo at Reed_Simpson to help pay for it. Because IT told me that I am no longer permitted. Well, they didn't say it like that. They're like, you probably shouldn't put megabytes and megabytes and megabytes of video downloads on your work laptop because then it'll slow down and crash every time you open Premiere, which is what happens now. But anyways, I digress. Y'all have a great weekend. Merry Christmas, and we will talk to y'all later.
Happy holidays.
Hanukkah.
Have a good one.
Yeah, holidays, all that. Whatever you celebrate.